Mike Tyson famously had a quote that said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face." And sometimes, as we've learned in things throughout this COVID pandemic, some people don't have a plan. Some people don't want to act like they have a plan, or their plan is shitty. And we've seen this happen time and time again. Now, I've referred to this in the last couple of podcasts, and again, listening to this podcast, I would recommend anybody, if you've missed this podcast that we did a couple podcasts ago with our colleague and friend Jane McManus, columnist from the Daily News, wrote a great article weeks ago about why she thought sports should not return.
And quoted Mike Tyson.
And quoted Mike Tyson in that too. Yes, she quoted in that episode. In that episode, she quoted that. Yeah, and I think it's fair to bring it back to this episode. And at the time we are recording this, as many people already know, the sports fans that listen to this podcast, we have seen the WNBA has returned in a bubble. Major League Baseball has returned, not in a bubble, and I had very much concerns about this. There still is a lot of chatter, Brian, about football and college football returning, which I think is even more ridiculous than baseball returning. Yeah, you should say like playoffs, college, it's crazy, right? And baseball, at the time of us recording this podcast, will be on its fourth night of play. Most teams have at least already played 3 games, and we have a situation. Things got real really quick. Now, before we get into all this and everything that's happened, Brian, I don't know how you felt about baseball restarting in terms of the other sports. I think we all felt that sports probably shouldn't restart, but we thought the NBA had a better chance because they were in a bubble. What were your thoughts on baseball in terms of the sport it is and possibly restarting?
So I obviously knew sports were going to come back at some point. It was inevitable, and I wasn't totally against it because I understood it, and I understand even from the standpoint of a lot of the players wanted to come back. Now, the NBA, their plan seemed like it could work. As we've already seen, they've had some cases, and now they have no cases as of recently, where they tested a whole bunch of people. I don't remember what specific day it was, but they came back with no positive tests. They're enforcing the testing so much that Kristaps Porzingis forgot to get a test and didn't play the next game. You know what I mean? Like, they're taking this very seriously. The NBA and the WNBA have obviously sort of earned our trust as it relates to this thing. Basketball has always seemed to be ahead at the forefront of that regard, where the NBA, they're in a bubble, obviously in Orlando, and the women are in IMG Academy, I think in Bradenton, Florida, and their season started Saturday. I was watching some of those games before I had to, make some moves responsibly with a mask, of course, social distancing and all that. But with Major League Baseball, when I heard that, because I was trying to figure this out, because I was doing some research, and this was right before the season was starting, because it just kind of crept up on me, and then I was like, wait, so they're actually going to just be flying to Atlanta, Miami, New York. Toronto can't play in Canada because Canada's like, get the hell out of here. So they're going to play in Buffalo, which is obsessively the same thing. Pittsburgh, and they're just going to fly around and play, I guess, within their divisions, but they're still going to be flying. Now, granted, teams have private jets. So part of me is like, I mean, maybe this will work in some instances, but you're going to have a situation inevitably in a place like maybe Florida, maybe Arizona, but one of these COVID hotbed places where there's going to be a lot of cases, and we're seeing that now, unsurprisingly, with the Miami Marlins, which, bad things seem to happen to all the time. But, for it to happen so early in the season, it obviously sucks for baseball, but there's a lot of I told you so that people could say here, being against like the plan, because it didn't appear that MLB and, football, it doesn't appear that they have plans. It doesn't appear that they really know what they're going to do. Whereas the NBA, we were getting reports for a long time before they finally thought about something and was like, all right, we're going to do this bubble situation. It's going to be a campus. We're going to put this, and this, and we're going to have, like the NBA actually thought of something. WNBA actually thought of something. I don't really know how soccer's going. I haven't really followed the MLS much, and how things are going on over there. I know internationally, though, they seem to be doing a pretty good job, from what I understand, in the Premier League and in Germany and in Italy, so on and so forth. But then again, those countries are just all doing a much better job of mitigating this virus than we are, because we're still in the same position we were, although not in New York City, but in some places in this country, we're in the same position, if not worse positions than before, basically.
Yeah, well, a lot of this upsets me, and a lot of it for me is absolutely I told you so. I mean, how did we think this was going to work? And I was talking with my cousin who's a doctor in Atlanta, and she's telling me about how the hospitals are slammed and everything down there. And she's also a big baseball fan, and we're talking about the Mets the other day, and how we feel conflicted watching this because we know that these players might not be safe. One of the things she brought to me, somebody who studied medicine, is, when she's not an epidemiologist, but studied medicine, and said, hey, look, but these guys spend a lot of time in the clubhouse. They spend a lot of time in the dugout. I was, the week before the season started, I was at Citi Field to watch a Mets workout and practice and inter-squad game. And I saw some of the things that was being done. But yeah, I was like, yeah, the guys are still in the dugout. And that was a concern for me. So I'm not surprised at all this, because while baseball is a sport where most of the players, when on the field, when you're playing defense and pitching, when on the field, yes, you can be socially distant. But in that dugout, in the clubhouse, a lot of time is together, traveling together, as you brought up, Brian. These were the concerns for me. Let's also give a shout out to Canada. Shout out to Canada for doing the right thing by its citizens here. And let's just keep it real. With all this stuff around sports coming back in this country, it's been about the money. It's greed. A lot of these organizations have not shown to care about the health of the players. Now, the NBA has tried to do it the right way. Even Dr. Fauci has said, if you're going to try to bring sports back, this is the best way you can do it. Trying to do it in a bubble with the precautions that the NBA has done. A lot of people, from what you hear on the inside, colleagues who are down there, are saying, hey, they're doing a good job. This is very strict. This is very thorough with what they're doing. Does that mean an outbreak can't happen? No. But what we're saying is they tried to have something self-contained. Now, baseball couldn't do that because Florida and Arizona, the places where they have a lot of the stadiums for spring training, those are the places where local governors there aren't doing the right thing. And citizens are protesting for their right to not wear masks. And a lot of people are in danger in those states. So then, with that being said, we can't be surprised at what we've seen in Miami. And what we want to let people know with the Marlins, Miami Marlins, 13 of players, it's 11 players, 2 staff members have tested positive for the coronavirus. This is all after their 3rd game of the season. So then they had to cancel 2 games. The Marlins and Orioles were supposed to play starting Monday of this week when you're listening to this podcast down in Miami. That game, the first game, which was supposed to be Monday, that's been canceled. The Yankees-Phillies were all supposed to start a series in Philadelphia. That also has been canceled because the Phillies had recently played the Marlins. And I think it's interesting, Brian, we don't know this yet at the time of recording this podcast, although I've been looking for information and I haven't seen anything yet, is that how many Phillies players potentially could have been infected. The way you play other teams so quickly in the MLB, and the travel, as you mentioned, is what makes it dangerous. But kudos to the Blue Jays in Canada for saying no. Well, really Canada and their Minister of Health for saying, no, we're not going to have American teams where you guys are handling this virus horribly come into our country and have all this travel. We're going to put, and I'm paraquoting here, the safety of our citizens first. And that's exactly what should be done. But a lot of this is I told you so. And now it's on Major League Baseball to say something. We have waited all day before we recorded this podcast on Monday, and we have heard nothing yet from Commissioner Rob Manfred. Nothing.
That's a good point.
Nothing at all. So far, and that's absolutely despicable. And he has to speak. He's got to silence. There's a lot of critics around this. There's a lot of things going on. I want to read a tweet from David Price, pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who we all got to remember decided not to play this season because he was concerned about his safety, because he didn't want to put himself at risk. And you know what David Price is sitting back and doing? I told you so. That's exactly what he's doing. David Price had this to say. He said, now we really, in all caps, get to see if MLB is going to put players' health first. Remember when Manfred said players' health was paramount? Part of the reason I'm at home right now is because players' health wasn't being put first. I can see that hasn't changed. Hey, he's not wrong here. He's not wrong here at all. The problem here, Brian, in my opinion, and I had taken some notes on what the protocol was, just to be comparative in terms of Major League Baseball and why I have issues with it, right? And so just so everybody knows, players in Major League Baseball, they're tested for the virus every other day during the regular season. Tests will be run on saliva collections, though there will be instances in which nasal or oral swabs could be used. Players and staff will undergo symptom screens and temperature checks at least twice a day during the season. People will be given a thermometer to check their temperatures every morning. The temperature threshold is 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's my other part. And this was the thing I wondered about, and I didn't know, but I had to look up earlier today. There's no official restrictions on what players are allowed to do away from stadiums. But the Major League Baseball says individuals must, quote, ensure they all act responsibly.
It's not good enough.
No, it's not good enough.
It's not good enough. We all went to school. You know what I mean? Like, we were told you have to follow these certain rules and didn't do them in high school. You don't just grow out of that because you become an adult. And a lot of these guys are in their 20s. You think they're going to follow a bunch of rules just because you said so? Like, no.
Also, we can look as far as the states where these numbers have gone up. You know why they're going up? Because people couldn't follow the rules when you left it up to them on their own. People couldn't simply say, hey, you know what? Put on a mask to keep other people safe. Look at the states, Arizona, Georgia, Florida, and ask yourself what the people are doing there when left up onto their own by local governments, right? Nothing. They're not doing it. No, I cannot trust and ensure that people are going to do the right thing in a pandemic. If anything we've learned from the pandemic, it's that. We can't ensure that. And my problem, Brian, with Major League Baseball before we move on is it's not enough to just test, right? It's not enough to just, when you find out somebody has this disease, to then quarantine them. That's all reactive. How are you being proactive? It's fair to question, has Major League Baseball been proactive at all in this? What have they really been doing to protect the players, right? Some people will say, well, they're doing some of the stuff you said before. That's all testing. You got to prevent people from being able to get it. It does matter what they do when they leave the ballpark. These men, some of them go home to girlfriends, wives, kids, moms, dads, whoever.
Multiple wives.
What mistresses, whoever they're seeing, right? You don't know where they're going. You're just going to ensure that they do the right thing. You don't know if some person, when they go to Atlanta or Chicago, wherever, Milwaukee, wherever, how they're moving in those spaces or what they're doing. And then they come back into the clubhouse. And let's say Brian's my teammate, and Brian's been the one who's been chilling in his room, playing his PlayStation, not going out there and really trying to stay safe and socially distant. But I'm the person that's been hitting the town, still trying to hit these bars, still trying to see what the action is down on whatever street.
Yeah.
And now I bring something back to you. I'm responsible for that. And it is responsible on the leadership of the MLB to protect the players, and they haven't done this. Now, I understand why they couldn't have a bubble, because Florida and Arizona. But at the same time, where has Major League Baseball been proactive? Please show me. Please show me where they've been proactive in taking care of the players who, for a majority of time during a game, are pretty tight. I know they've expanded the dugouts and built things along the first and third base line so players can go into, but the players are still too close. It's just still too much. They spend a lot of time in the clubhouse, as I said. I told you so. Now, baseball has gotten punched in the face.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they didn't really have a plan.
Yeah, I agree. I have nothing else to add. If you ask me if we're going to see playoffs or World Series, I don't think we're probably going to see any of that this year. You know what I mean? At this rate, I have no idea what's going to happen because, again, Rob Manfred is out here trying to get this money, so we really don't know. But it's probably likely that we see baseball stop in August or something like that, if they even want to get that far. But I don't know because I don't know because greed is obviously run rampant on this country.